Well, happy Thanksgiving week, everyone. People in the Sangha and even outside of the formal Sangha always ask me, do you celebrate Thanksgiving? And it's like, yes. In fact, I celebrate many holidays, whether they're a national holiday or a religious holiday. In our practice, again, as the Dalai Lama has stated many times, Buddhism is a practice like yoga. It's not a religion. And so you're free to practice or celebrate any holiday you want. It's more about not the doing, but the quality of doing. Where is the celebration coming from? And so the Buddhist value of gratitude and giving are considered one and the same, and that's the practice of dana. You've heard me speak about dana, and the Sanskrit word, the Pali word dana, for gratitude and giving. So oftentimes we often, the Hallmark callers always say that it's in the giving that we receive, and so that same circle is represented in dana. And it is a fundamental practice to Buddhism that we share with this particular holiday of Thanksgiving. And not only does it help us in progressing towards realizing dependent origination, which is the interconnectedness of all beings, but it also helps us to free ourselves from attachment and builds a compassionate mind, this practice of dana and gratitude and giving. Master Yun explains, and he says that as Buddhists, we should feel fundamentally grateful for everything that happens. We should feel fundamentally grateful for every experience that we have. But why? Why should we be fundamentally grateful for every experience? Sure, it's easy to be grateful when wonderful things show up and happy things and pleasant things arrive in our consciousness and our awareness and in our lives. But what about those painful, unpleasant experiences? Those things that cause us to feel sadness or grief or loss. What about those? Should we be fundamentally grateful for those experiences? And the answer is yes. We should even be grateful for those, even though they may be painful and difficult. They are an important part of our practice. My teacher would always say, it is the suffering that wakes us up. It's not the joy and the happiness and the pleasure. Those things are nice and we like them and don't want to knock those at all. We don't want to knock any of it. It's just that the suffering is what leads us to doing the inner work, asking the bigger questions, seeking out teachers, seeking out the Dharma, seeking out Sangha. So it is the suffering that wakes us up. Which brings me to what is on my heart. So I am currently in an experience of the dissolution of a relationship, the dissolving of a relationship. And it has been, well, yes, a very painful experience, lots of emotions rising and falling in a very rapid succession or parade. But what has been fascinating for me is how my practice is informing the experience. And the experience is providing fodder or material for the practice. So there's this amazing reciprocity going on. And so let me explain further. In the dissolution of this relationship, I have become aware of layers. So for example, there's a layer of judgment, about the other person, about myself, about factors surrounding the relationship. There is judgment and there is blame. There are stories that generate about what's happening, what's really happening here, what's going on, what is meant by this comment. So I'm able to actually see these layers. They arise in full 4K color. What are we up to now in our televisions? HD, 1080p, anyway, they're there. And I'm able to see them. And simply the awareness of those drives a wedge into me being lost in them. So there's one layer that I'm able to see. And I can, in the same way that we practice and sit on the cushion, I can allow them to rise and fall. No need to grab a hold of one and take action. Another layer that I think has been very interesting is the conditioning patterns from my own life around how the dissolution or the dissolving of a relationship should be, look, sound. There should be much wringing of hands and gnashing of teeth and yelling and screaming and blaming and judging. That's how it's always been. That's what a dissolving relationship looks and sounds like. And my practice says, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be anything. It doesn't have to look any way. The dissolving of the relationship is exactly what it is at that moment. Maybe sadness arises. Maybe even some relief arises. Maybe some nostalgia arises. Maybe some excitement around what's around the next corner as this relationship dissolves. Or what is this relationship actually turning into? That's been fascinating, because there was a pattern in me that said a dissolving relationship is dissolving and is gone forever. But my practice is informing that and saying, wait. That's futuring. That's attaching to something that you think is going to happen. And what we know in our Buddhist practice, as the Buddha said, there's only 2 days a year that are worthless. That's yesterday and tomorrow. There's no reason that it has to look that way. It has to be that. It's not dissolving completely. It's dissolving in the way that I knew it and is becoming something else. And if I attach to the outcome of it dissolving completely, then a cutting off, a severing occurs. And I have attached to what I think it should be or the way I think it's going to turn out. And that is not a present moment mindful practice or experience. Instead, I am simply placing space around it, dissolving as one thing, and allowing it to become something else. There has also been a layer of aversion to the painful aspect of the dissolving of a relationship. And that has manifested for me primarily through speech. As I speak and talk with teachers, friends, relatives, Sangha members, about the dissolution of the relationship, I notice how I spiritualize it. And I talk about all these layers, and I talk about it is what it is, and there's all this spiritualizing going on, realizing that that can be an intellectual and a conceptual way to frame it, but in the end, it just hurts like hell. And that's all there is to it. It's pain. And so I take the one seat, I sit with the pain, the discomfort, the unknown, and just allow that to purify and to process without analyzing it, without psychoanalyzing it, without wondering what's wrong with me, what's wrong with them, what's wrong with the situation, how did all this happen? You see the suffering that wants to get overlaid. And that is just suffering. So to deepen our practice and bolster our ability to be grateful for even the most difficult experiences, we have no further to look than the Four Noble Truths. The first noble truth in life: there is suffering. Because of the impermanent nature of things, because we feel more secure when we have a sense of predictability, we develop a great capacity for denying a simple truth, that nothing stays the same. And then the unpredictability of life shows us that even if we do everything right and we take every precaution, that we still must face the unexpected loss. And when this happens, the shock can make it hard to regain our equanimity, our open-handedness with life, allowing things to rise and fall. And it can also impact our ability to exercise non-reactivity. I'm not saying we can't respond to people, places, and things as these experiences occur. I'm saying that it is unskillful to react to them. Responding implies a sense of awareness of what's going on in the form right now, providing space around that, allowing our practice to inform the moment, and then responding in a skillful place of compassion and love, not fear, judgment, and blame, and all those things that want to arise on a more knee-jerk level, that reactivity. When we come from a place of responding, we can work creatively with the change, creatively with the experience, allowing it to be more factual and what it actually is than what we are, especially from a reactive place. Or, in some cases, what they are. If the people in the experience are reactive and emotional, to center, to ground, to breathe, and to be coming from a place of non-reactivity can help those in the situation find growth, can help them to see what it is that they're processing, and can actually bring about a different experience than what the conditioned patterns of speech and behavior have been telling us, or particularly me, for the past 54 years. The second noble truth: suffering is due to attachments and expectations, both grasping and clinging. Our inability to avoid change may make us angry, sad, frustrated. It can be hard to let go of the false belief that the only way to achieve happiness again is to regain what was lost. Even when we know that we cannot reverse a situation or an experience, we can still agonize over that attachment to trying to regain what was lost. Clinging to what it once was, avoiding the process of a very natural process, by the way, of grief, of acceptance. To avoid that can cause paralysis and can actually get a trauma or a crisis situation lodged in the form as an energy knot. And then that energy knot will then inform future experiences. Oh, this is what the dissolution of a relationship looked like, and so that's what this is going to be. No, it's not. It is exactly what it is at this moment, and nothing more. The desire to backtrack and reconstruct will likely result in us walking around in circles, lost in dark woods, instead of peering around corners and being open to new pathways, new ways of experiencing. The third noble truth: it's possible to end suffering by giving up clinging or attachments and expectations. The shift in perspective that comes when we recognize that there's no such thing as a permanent sense of happiness, a permanent sense of security. The sooner we recognize that there's no such thing as these, our healing from suffering begins. The next step is to accept that we must broaden our definition of what we need in order to be happy, and giving up the habits of clinging and grasping, as well as, and this is a big one for me, the need to control a situation, to control an experience, or to manipulate an outcome. So after emerging from the shock of a great loss, we're even more despairing about the possibility about being joyful again. However, the third noble truth offers us the promise of a new way of living that is satisfying, more fulfilling than the old way. It beckons us to begin the process of transformation, and that is why suffering is what wakes us up. It invites the process of transformation, giving us the opportunity to have a factual experience free from judgment, story, overlay. We still feel the emotions. We still feel the pain. We still feel the grief. We still feel the loss. That was never the promise. The promise was freedom from suffering. Pain is a natural part of the human experience. And there comes a part in our practice when there is even a sweetness to the pain, because we realize we're feeling the full range of experience in this human form. The full range, as the Buddha put it, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows. Rumi says, welcome them all. Laughing at the door, invite them in, no matter how painful experience they are, how difficult they are, no matter what kind of a horde of discomfort has come to clear out your house. Welcome them in, sit down to tea, because they have been sent by the beloved to teach you a very important lesson. And the fourth noble truth: the way to end the suffering due to clinging and grasping is through balance. Balance and living in the present moment. It's important to balance a thirst for something better with an acceptance of exactly what is. Right now, right in this moment. Balance allows us to live in the present and trust that our acceptance will clear the mist of confusion and distraction and show us the way to move forward again in love, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And it is from these that happiness arises. You cannot pursue, grasp, cling, or find happiness. That's not how it works. It arises as a natural byproduct when we create radical acceptance and bring compassion and love to each and every experience, especially the painful ones. We become aware of what is happening inside of us, acknowledging that this is an internal experience that is causing the suffering. Accepting whatever happens or is happening could not have happened otherwise. That is a deep and a profound teaching. Accepting that what happened or is happening could not happen otherwise, because it is our own arrogance to think that we could have made a different outcome, that we could have somehow changed things. Regret. Radical acceptance says, no, this happened exactly as it did. And Byron Katie is very clear. We know that this is perfect because it happened. That's what makes it perfect. It couldn't have happened otherwise. When we become aware of these attachments and acknowledge that they are creating our suffering and accept the impermanence of even the attachments, letting go of letting go, in that, what arises is what Zen Master Thich Nhat Hanh calls the let go state of being. Letting go is not a doing. It's not this. It has always been this. So when we let go of letting go, we let go of letting go, and we simply arise in a state of beingness that allows the coming and going, the rising and falling of each and every moment. This becomes a state of peace as we put space around the suffering, space around the experience, and in that space there is the peace, as in the Christian tradition, the peace that passeth all understanding. So if you are struggling with letting go, the new catchphrase is let go of your need to let go. It's not as pithy as just hang in there, baby. But there is a deep and powerful teaching, and it is more useful in letting go of the need to let go and just be present in this moment, and the outcomes in life will continue to move on.